Karen Sutherland, will you be representing Mr. Bokinski?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And we just had Chief Bailey from MCSO joining us. Welcome, Chief. Chief Bailey from MCSO, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Can you hear me now?
I can. And Chief is correct. I accidentally gave Commander Gallagher from Phoenix PD a promotion. Did I give you accidentally a promotion too?
No, ma'am. Unfortunately, that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Liz, I'm going to invoke the no backseat rule.
And Michelle Potts from Chandler has joined us.
Liz.
Yes. So Chief Walker, we do have a quorum.
Okay, all right. Well, with that, are you want to go ahead and get started then, Liz?
Yes.
All right, well, excellent. Well, good morning, everyone. Quorum is now present. The meeting of the MAG 911 Oversight Team is called to order. Please note all meeting attendees will enter muted, and phone-only attendees will need to press *6 to unmute at the beginning of the meeting, and if they are subsequently muted by the host. Please remember to mute when you are not speaking to create a positive experience for all attendees. I would like to welcome a new member to the 911 Oversight Team. So we have John Bailey from MCSO. John, thank you for taking time to be part of this regional effort. We appreciate you participating. So welcome.
Thank you. I look forward to participating.
So our next item on the agenda is a call to the audience. Members of the public were asked to submit written comments related to this meeting through the MAG website. Comments may be sent at any time leading up to the meeting, but must be received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. Ms. Graber, have we received any public comments? If we have, please read them at this time.
Chief Walker, we have received no comments for this item or any other item.
Thank you, Ms. Graber. With that, we'll move on to our next item. So our next item is the approval of the May 2021 meeting minutes. Does any member have any questions or comments on the minutes? Seeing none, or seeing no hands. So if no questions, then could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Chief Good, are you?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was muted. So moved, Chief Walker.
Thank you, Chief Good. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Michelle Chandler, second.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So we have a motion from Chief Good and a second from Michelle. Is there any discussion of the motion? All right, seeing and hearing none. Staff, will you now do a roll call vote?
Thank you, Chief Walker. I will go through the list of members. Please indicate how you vote when I call your name. Be sure that you're unmuted when you respond. George Good, Tolleson Fire.
Aye.
Glendale Fire. Tempe PD. Commander Gallagher, Phoenix PD.
Abstain.
Mesa Fire.
Aye.
And Mesa Fire. John Bailey, MCSO.
Aye.
Michelle Potts, Chandler PD.
Aye.
Karen Sutherland, Scottsdale PD.
Aye.
Rob McDaniel, Peoria PD.
Aye.
And Scott Walker of Phoenix Fire.
Aye.
That completes the vote. Is there anyone I did not call? It appears, Chief Walker, the agenda item has passed.
Thank you, Ms. Graber. So the next agenda item is the administrator report. So Liz Graber, the 911 administrator, will provide a report on the activities and programs managed by Maricopa Region 911. Liz, please go ahead.
Thank you. So as always, we've been quite busy, and could I get the next slide, Jeremy? There we go. So our SENS, for our new members, SENS is our Community Emergency Notification System. That's our reverse 911 that we implemented back in 2003, and we track the stats with that every year. Agencies use this when they need to notify a neighborhood or community of any type of emergency. This is something that is equipped in all of your PSAPs, that they have the ability to do this. We are on track this year with 100 activations year to date. That keeps us about where we were last year, so we're trending normal on it. It is used for both police and law enforcement as well as fire, so all agencies are welcome to use it. We then also oversee the text to 911 program. This was implemented April of 2018. So our total last year was 7,061 text sessions, and year to date, we're up to 5,903. We average monthly 738 text sessions, and we are trending approximately 25% higher from this time last year. So those are two items that I have to report on the administrator's report.
Thank you, Ms. Graber. If there are any questions on these items, please see Ms. Graber after the meeting. Follow up with her on those, please. Our next item we're going to move to is on the agenda is the MAG FY 2023 PSAP Annual Element Funding Request and the FY 2023 to 2028 Equipment Program. This report will be given by Liz Graber as well. Liz, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chief Walker. So what we're looking at here is the 6-year forecast for the PSAPs and their budgets. We request the PSAPs every year to give us their needs, forecasting out 6 years, and that would include additional 911 call taking workstations. It would also mean if they are moving or remodeling, they need to identify that. And then we also identify who is scheduled for upgrades every year. And this was presented to the PSAP managers in the August meeting and to review, and they've moved it forward. So if you look at fiscal year 23, if you see if you see the NBIN, that means they haven't requested anything, no budget items needed. And so for fiscal year 2023, you see that Gilbert PD has requested 5 911 workstations. They've asked for a logging recorder reimbursement, which the state code allows for a percentage of a reimbursement to agencies that buy logging recorders. They've also are asking for a remodel. They're remodeling, and even though that's their cost, it affects our team because we have to assist on moving phones around or if they go to a new area and all the equipment that might need to be moved or reconfigured for their remodel. Next down, we'll have Goodyear. Goodyear has asked for 4 additional 911 workstations, call taking workstations. Luke Air Force Base is scheduled for an upgrade. Luke is unique because we have to make sure that they're JITC certified, meaning that the Department of Defense approved equipment before they'll let it be installed on one of their military sites. Mesa PD has requested 3 additional workstations. Phoenix PD is due for an upgrade. Phoenix PD is our largest site with 102 positions. And they take the majority of our calls. So they are up next fiscal year as well. Phoenix, Scottsdale PD is requesting a logging recorder reimbursement. And Scottsdale PD is also doing a remodel that on their center. And then Tempe is also looking at a remodel. So those are what we're up against in the fiscal year 2023. Everything beyond that is more of a strategic planning where you see positions requested and different things. That's just a forecast. And then we also outline all of our upgrades out to 6 years so the PSAPs can see when they are due for an upgrade. Are there any questions on the 6-year forecast? Okay, if we can go to the budget itself. This is our budget for fiscal year 2023. The budget is broken up in several categories. Wireline. Wireline is the original 911 system with the trunks that were provided by CenturyLink or Lumen, I should say. They provide about 15% of our 911 calls and includes the payment to them and other wireline companies that provide service to businesses and residents. We also, part of the wireline is where maintenance for the 911 system lies. Wireless has to do with all cell phone and some voice over IP management. Those are managed by the MR911 team. We manage all the wireless routing within the region. NG911 is next generation 911, and that has to do with moving into an IP platform. That is the goal of nationwide for 911. And then we have administration costs and then PSAP request. Part of our, if you look at the bottom of there, that it lists out who the upgrades are for. Luke Air Force Base, we have listed at $244,000. Phoenix PD's upgrade is a little over 3.6 million. And then we have Project Peripherals. So that brings our budget request for upgrades to $3,934,000. Like I said earlier, Phoenix PD is our largest PSAP. We know that when they upgrade that they are going to take a large amount of money to upgrade. We usually average about 2 million every year for our upgraded projects, but we know that Phoenix PD is going to be that spike because of just the nature of their size and their large call volume. And then we have our NG911 projects with the complexity of IP and security and everything that goes with anything that's going through an internet or through a networking. We have to keep diligent on our on the security as well as the technology level that we'll need to ensure that 911 is solid. And those are the projects we have there in the amount of $384,000. And then the PSAPs requests that we saw on the 6-year forecast, we have them captured as well with Gilbert's logging recorder and 5 positions, Goodyear's 4 positions, Mesa PD's 3 positions, and Scottsdale's logging recorder. And we estimate the cost of those will be $800,000. So a total budget for that we'll be applying to the state for is 12 million. I'm sorry, my eyes aren't very good. Let's see if I can get on my paper. $12,887,932. And this is about a 20% uptick in our budget. We normally get 10 million. We received 10.2 million. So this is going to be a significant increase on what we've asked. for in the past. Part of what we look at is to see where we can make sure that we're spending our money wisely. When the state in fiscal year 2020, the state had us bring all cost and procurement within the city of Phoenix. Originally, they were doing it, and they had all the systems throughout the state purchase locally, do local procurement. And so the city of Phoenix, on behalf of all the member agencies, does the procurement on that. And so we track that very closely on what we need, what's needed and what's wanted, and we'd like to have. And so the PSAP requests are something that the PSAPs have requested they'd like to have. But one of the challenges with the limited funds that we have in the state and in the region is making sure we have enough money. And we have been tasked, and we have this as an agenda item, and we'll speak to it. Karen Sutherland will speak to it in more detail, is doing a formula on when to add a new position. So we want to make sure that the PSAPs are covered on being able to answer and have their 911 calls answered in a timely manner, and to have the capability of having enough workstations to do that. But we felt like we needed a formula to ensure that we're putting the most appropriate. And do they need more? Do they need that many? It's what the formula is to do, and that's what they've been working on. The positions that are on this list and this fiscal year have not had the formula, have not been gone through the formula. So it's unknown whether or not these would meet those criteria. And Karen can get more into what the formula looks like, but I just want to make sure that the committee was aware that these are not part of that formula. So a lot of information thrown at you guys in a quick time frame. Is there any questions that I can answer?
Any questions from the members of the team?
I don't have a question necessarily. It's Michelle with Chandler. I don't have any questions necessarily, but I did want to add to the conversation, since I was part of the discussion on the PSAP managers meeting. I think it's worthwhile to listen to maybe the status of Karen Sutherland and her working group from the governance team that's working on the formula to really set us on a good pace for approving some of these positions moving forward. Some of the discussion that we had in the PSAP managers meeting was the justification for the positions that are put forward on this budget. And I think they're considerably disparate than what this formula is proposing. So I think I personally have some concerns on moving this budget forward and the positions as proposed, because I think what we'll find ourselves in is potentially a catching up across the region. So we put 5 positions and then we compare them across the region. I think we'll find some smaller centers have almost 50% more consoles than some of the larger centers. And it's not based on a specific formula. And the 911 call volumes are going to be completely disparate. So I think until we have a formula set up, I would suggest that maybe we pause moving these forward until that formula is approved, because I think the justifications in the decision to move this forward are not based on that formula. So I don't know if we want to maybe kick this over to Karen and have her from Scottsdale and have her brief on that working group. But right now, I think these were pushed forward based on very limited information. So I don't know if there's any questions that I can answer based on that previous discussion, but I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions specific to Michelle on that?
Chairman Walker?
Yes, go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, and a couple of questions in response to that. And I think she brings up some really good points. And I guess what I'm not clear on is at what point is, as we consider the different requests, like we see PSAP requests, in some cases, they're asking for positions. So at what level is that position generally funded by? Let's say Gilbert PD is the first one that's on there, so it's not an attack on Gilbert PD. But at what point does the municipality of Gilbert fund a position, because they're funding other positions? And at what point does this funding come through this committee? And I think maybe that's something we should look at in addition to the points that Michelle brought up. So what is the responsibility of the PSAP and what versus our committee? And I think we should look at all of those things, and just so we understand, and if there's a formula, then great, at least we have something to point to.
Chief, can I clarify real quick? When these are for call taking workstations, we use the term position, but it's not for any personnel. It's just for the equipment for someone to answer a 911 call from.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chief. I had a couple comments as well. Both, I think I agree with Michelle's comments and position, I believe in, and Chief Good. I would say first, Liz, do we have any indication that your revenue side is going to go up by $2 million in fiscal year 2020-23 from the state?
Well, that is a concern because the collections that we get, the state gathers, has not gone up. And we've talked about it. The state of Arizona is the lowest 911 collection. And then coupled with the next gen platform that the state, as a project going statewide, is going to take a chunk of the funding as well. And that's a statewide project. We're involved in it, but that's for everybody in the state. And then the other thing would be Phoenix PD, their upgrade, which is needed. So between all of that is our expense have gone up, but the state 911 revenue has not.
So thank you. So I would be troubled to pass a budget for almost $13 million if the revenues are going to stay consistent at 10. The revenue side is a finite number that I don't know how we'd offset that, right? So I would be troubled in doing that. I do agree with Michelle's position. It sounds like from the PSAP managers conversations that we need to have some really objective process to determine how many positions are at a PSAP, how new ones are put into place. And that will really help in us in these conversations and budgeting. I appreciate the 6-year forecast. I think that's a good start, but I think the other piece of that will be this formula that we're going to hear about later about how and when a new position is needed and really justified in a sense, because in this day and age we're in, it's our revenue side has to equal our expenditure side, and right now I don't see it as that the case with this budget. So I would be troubled trying to move this budget as it is forward today. I think that's our responsibility to make those type of fiscal decisions. So unless we had any information, the revenue sides were going up, I would be troubled with that. So that's what I have for that. And we can discuss it if we have a motion to move anything forward here. Any other questions?
Chairman Walker, I have one more question.
Yes, Nathan.
And that is, in the event that we are not funded at 12 million, but we have the 10 million, is there a process in place that at which we would revisit the requests that were made by the agencies and scale those back based on a percentage or some other formulaic driven method, so that we could still, with the $10 million, how would we spend the $10 million?
Liz, any comments on that?
Chief Good, the PSAP managers, as part of in fiscal year 2020, they came up with a governance of prioritizing the budget on what is needed. And part of that was highest priority is keeping the infrastructure alive, what the platform that 911 is going across of, maintenance, having people 24/7 to be able to work on any issues. Then they prioritized equipment for upgrades so the equipment doesn't get outdated. And then it was additional training, additional positions and reimbursements. So they have a priority of what we'd have to look at. And so if we had to go back and make adjustments on the budget, that's what the priorities that we would use to trim it down. So ultimately, it could be that upgrades would be affected and additional equipment requests. In approximately 10 years ago, when we were going through the first bubble and the state swept a lot of the 911 funds, we were at the point funding wise where no projects were approved. We were just doing the infrastructure to keep 911, keep the lights on, and to keep our maintenance team in board. So it would revert back to that if for the money shortage, we didn't have enough monies to cover. I hope that answered your question.
It does. Thank you.
One more comment is, it is important though for Liz and for the operation that we do have to move some type of a budget forward. We have to, have this conversation. And I think we are better off to control our destiny as opposed to passing a budget that has a significant shortfall and then have the state make those decisions for us. So I would rather see the region make those decisions for itself. I think we'd be better off to do that. So I just have that comment.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the Oversight team, Nathan Pryor, Policy and Government Relations Director at MAG. Appreciate this conversation. Just want to provide some context from what is collected through the state. So annually, that's about $18 million a year that gets collected by the state. If you kind of do rough back of the napkin math, if you will, the Phoenix metro area is 70% of the population of the state. So if you were to do some rough, simple math, $18 million collected times 70 or so percent of the population, that's about $12.5 million. One could argue that's being contributed by this region to that $18 million. So, I would say that, what we're looking for in our budget proposal is our fair share in a way, recognizing that the state does have needs statewide. So that number does fluctuate, as Liz has pointed out in the past, as to what the region has been getting, although arguably it's been more stable in recent years than earlier years, some 10 years ago plus. So just wanted to provide that context in terms of the state revenue that is rolled up annually and just in context as to the budget that we're submitting. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that information. That is, we do know that, or I'm aware of that what I would say a variance there of what maybe we should be getting and what we have been getting. So if we can correct that, we would be far better off. I would certainly agree with that. So any other comments or questions about the presentation?
This is Karen Sutherland from Scottsdale, and if it would help, I can give a high-level overview on what the formula is and what the thought process was, so that you can just see what it is that we were looking at to make what we think are the decisions that we need to adopt for the county.
I think, does the team agree that might be of value to hear that? I think so. Karen or Ms. Sutherland, if you want to provide that high level, that'd be great.
Okay, Liz, is it okay if I share my screen?
I don't have that capability. You would have to submit it. I'm sorry, but yeah, this is Zoom.
Oh, all right. All right, let me see. Can I send it to, if I sent it to you, could you, or who would I send it to so that they can put it up?
Karen, I just made you a co-host, so you should have the ability to share your screen now.
Okay.
It'll be a green button at the bottom.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, are you seeing the Excel spreadsheet now that says 2020
Yes.
call volumes?
We are.
Okay. Basically, it's a pretty invasive spreadsheet. Along the bottom of it, you'll see every day of the week. And if I was to scroll to the left, you would see that every week of the year, the call volumes are in there. So it is some work for the agency that wants to put it together. You're looking at Scottsdale's right now. What we did with the information is we figured out how many average calls per hour and then decided to go at a 75% mark, because if we do 50%, we're not going to meet our standard of 90% of the calls answered. I think even though that's been changed to 95 seconds, most of us still have it at, 95% within 15 seconds. Most of us are still doing the 90% at 10. So what we've done is I broke it out into 3 different possibilities. A high occupancy rate of 70% of the time that we want our call takers actually answering calls, 65 and then 55. And 55 is probably the optimum occupancy rate based on sick calls and vacations and the ability to keep up throughout the year. Breaking it down by the high average per hour, it shows how many call takers we would need on duty, which obviously would be rounded up so that that's how many positions you would have to have in order to accommodate that. So if I look at a Friday for Scottsdale, you can see that we're up to 6 at times. Phoenix might be at 26 or 106. I don't know what their, whatever their volume shows. But what we wanted to do was break it down into, and this is just the basics for answering the calls that are coming in right now. Break it down so that each agency can see at every given hour of the day, this is how many positions we need to meet our standards and answer the 911 calls. And what then needs to be taken into account on top of this is how many positions need to be available for trainees to sit on, because that's going to add on to those positions. And we probably need a certain percentage for positions that are under repair. We don't want to have somebody at the bare minimum so that they can't train their new employees, and that if a position goes down, that they're under the wire again. But we have got this so that an agency that wants additional positions would need to go into their phone reports, fill this out, and show us that they have the volume to require these positions, because it is with a limited budget, we want to make sure that we're putting the money where it needs to go. Does anybody have any questions just on kind of what you see right here before I go ahead and give the screen back?
I have no questions. I would just say it makes good sense to me. And I think, again, it goes back to some objective standard to use to fulfill requests, or to have people understand why requests are being filled, is to Chief Good's point.
Okay, then if we can go ahead and take the screen back, you're welcome to it.
Thank you for that, Ms. Sutherland. Any other questions from the team on this information? All right, hearing none. At this time, is there anyone that would like to make any type of a motion regarding the MAG 2023 PSAP annual element funding request and the 23 to 28 equipment program?
I'm sorry, Chief Walker, are you asking for a motion?
Yes.
I'm sorry, okay.
As I said, I believe we do need, Liz, and you confirm, we do need to move a budget, some type of budget recommendation forward, correct, for your timelines?
Yep, so we'll need a member, someone to make a motion to approve the budget in total, or to disregard the budget, or to amend the budget. We need some sort of a motion towards that.
So Chief Walker, can we make a motion to amend the budget, or to put it through with, I don't know, a caveat that the positions will be put on pause pending an approved formula through the PSAT manager's governance working group. Is that something that we could maybe put a motion through on?
I believe that is, the answer is yes. Nathan, if you're still on there, can you help us? Could you help answer that question clearly and craft that for us? Help us craft that?
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the Oversight team, that motion could be included, that portion, and I believe I'll defer to Liz, but the budget be submitted as proposed, recognizing there's work to be done on the formula approach, and could result in potential revisions or changes at a later date. But I think that would still allow the region and Liz to submit a budget to the state, just noting the additional work to be done. Liz, is that your understanding?
So we would approve the budget with the exception of the additional positions until we got a formula in place to weigh them against. So we'd be able to move the budget ahead with everything except that area, so we could do more follow-up and work on getting justification for that funding. If is that what you were meaning, Michelle, or?
Yes, that was my recommendation, was the exception of the positions at this point in time.
Okay, so Michelle, then you're making a motion to approve the budget, and based on the extra positions being requested will be scrutinized through the metric being developed. And at that point, they may or may not be approved based on that.
Correct, pending approval of the formula. And then running those position requests through the formula.
All right. If hopefully everybody's clear on what that motion is. I know it's a little confusing, but if the group is clear, do we have a second for that motion?
Karen Sutherland, I'll second.
We have a motion from Ms. Potts and a second from Ms. Sutherland. Liz and Nathan, do you have clearly what the motion is? Are you comfortable with what we've crafted?
I am, Nathan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, based on it, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this motion?
This is Rob McDaniel. I have a question. So if with those exceptions that we're talking about, can we have an estimate of how much that would pull off of this budget in terms of the 12+ million that was originally proposed? How much is this pulling back?
Yes, Liz, do you have that?
Yes, it'll be, the budget amount would be 600,000. So making the fiscal year 2023 budget 12,287,932.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know I'm kind of newer to this whole discussion, but from what Mr. Pryor was saying about this, are we still within our means as far as the budget to go over $10 million and make this complete justification, or am I missing something?
Chairman Walker.
Yes, go ahead.
I agree with the point that Rob's making, and that is that, so we've looked at the motion suggests that we not include the 600,000. We're still $2 million over if we were to only receive 10 million. So I would offer a friendly amendment for discussion purposes only, and that would be that we recommend approval of the budget subject to full funding, because if we get the full funding, we don't have to have those discussions. And if we do not receive the full funding, then we can come back and revisit any cuts to where we can come into the budget, because that 600,000 is not going to get us to 10 million, which might be all that we have approved.
All right, we have a friendly amendment to approve the budget as presented and based on the funding received, make changes after that based on the funding received. Is that correct, Chief Good?
That's correct, and I'm certainly welcome to any conversation regarding that. But I think we have to consider what we're going to do beyond those positions if we only get $10 million. And while those positions were discussed, we still would have some work to do.
Right. I think based on that, we need to address this friendly motion here. So do we have a second for Chief Good's motion, friendly amendment or motion?
This is Rob McDaniel. I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion for a friendly amendment by Chief Good and a second by Rob McDaniel. Any discussion on the friendly amendment? See none. I see no hands. All right. At that point, then I believe we need to do a roll call vote on that. Is that correct, Nathan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
Chief Walker, I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go through the list of members. Please indicate how you vote when I call your agency and name. George Good, Tolleson Fire.
Aye.
Glendale Fire.
Aye.
Thank you, Chief Kepler. Tempe PD. Commander Gallagher, Phoenix PD.
Aye.
Chief Yox, Mesa Fire.
Aye.
Chief Bailey, MCSO.
Aye.
Michelle Potts, Chandler PD.
Aye.
Karen Sutherland, Scottsdale PD.
Aye.
Rob McDaniel, Peoria PD.
Aye.
And Chief Walker, Phoenix Fire.
Aye.
Is there anyone I did not call? The agenda item has passed, Chief Walker.
Thank you, Ms. Graver. Based on that, that concludes that item. Is that correct, Nathan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item. This is an ongoing discussion on governance needed on a regional level. Liz Graver will provide this report. Liz?
And actually, I'm going to turn this over to Karen Sutherland. Karen Sutherland is a member of the working group on governance. We did get, this is on the NENA standard, the National Emergency Number Association, and their call answering standard. That's a national standard that we try to follow. And I'll turn it over to Karen Sutherland to explain why we use it and why we are putting it into our policies.
Thank you, Liz. The NENA and APCO set a lot of the standards that we have for our communications, probably more than any other. And this particular standard matches the NFPA standard that was also put into place and has been revised a few times over the years. It takes into account some of the new technologies and the new ways that we're doing business, and has changed from 90% within 10 seconds to 90% of 911 calls answered within 15 seconds and 95% within 20 seconds. It is more in line with the other professional standards organizations. And so that was why we decided to go with it as well, adopt it, and be on the national standard. What we learned as we surveyed the Valley is that probably, at least for now, most will continue with the 90% of 911 calls being answered within 10 seconds. But formally we would adopt the standard of NINA, APCO, and NFPA.
And Karen, did you want to also address about the broadcasting feature? Or do you want me to do that one as well?
Okay, I can do that too. So there's a system that's been put into the phones by MR911 so that each agency has the ability to notify the other agencies when something of significance is taking place. And it goes right out on the mapping system that the phones use. So we defined when a PSAP would be able to use that system and how they would use it and what would not be allowed through that system. Well, we wanted to, if there was a major incident, there was a catalyst, I believe it was probably about 18 months ago, that sort of started this conversation. And that was a major event in the Valley where phones rolled over to most of the other agencies because the agency that was affected by the emergency situation was so inundated by phone calls. And the other agencies were trying to transfer those phone calls right back to the agency that couldn't answer them in the first place. And so it really showed us that we had a flaw here in the Valley, and because other agencies really didn't know what was happening. And so this was developed by MR911 as a way to solve that problem by being able to make an announcement on the map. Other agencies would see it and would not be attempting to send calls right back to an agency that's unable to take them.
And the feature, excuse me, the feature we used for the Phoenix Fire was part of their upgrade was to test the system. So they had to shift their 911 calls to Mesa Fire, which took care of those, and to alert all of the 911, the PSAPs, we sent the broadcast message out. And the advantage is it hits every 911 mapping screen that's in a PSAP, and every call taking position has one. And so it's a scroller that goes across that lets you know what's going on. So it covers a lot of people immediately. And so we felt like the governance group felt like it needed to have some controls on it, that only appropriate things were being put across it, and that what we would use it for. And we feel like it's going to be a great tool for the PSAPs as an additional notification when they need to alert the member agencies of problems that are going on. And so those are the two new policy amendments that we'd like to add to our regional policies. And so that will require a vote, Chief Walker.
Thank you, Liz. Are there any questions from the membership on these two items? Chief Yox, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment that it worked extremely well during the Phoenix Fire, Phoenix Mesa 911 rollover. This was really, really good.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, could I have a motion for approval of the updating policies to include NINA call answering standards and the policies on the use of the RMAP broadcast feature?
So moved, Chief Walker. Or
Chief
Chairman
Good.
Walker, sorry.
Thank you, Chief Good. Do I have a second?
This is Brian at Mesa. I'll second it.
A motion by Vice Chair Good and a second by Chief Yox. Is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, Liz, could you please take a roll call vote?
Yes, thank you, Chief Walker. I will go through the list of members. Please indicate how you vote when I call your name. Chief Good with Tolleson Fire.
Aye.
Chief Kepler with Glendale Fire.
Aye.
Tempe PD. Commander Gallagher, Phoenix PD.
Aye.
Chief Yachts, Mesa Fire.
Aye.
Chief Bailey, MCSO.
Aye.
Michelle Potts, Chandler PD.
Aye.
Karen Sutherland, Scottsdale PD.
Aye.
Rob McDaniel, Peoria PD.
Aye.
And Chief Walker, Phoenix Fire.
Aye.
Is there anyone I did not call? Chief Walker, the agenda item has passed.
Thank you, Liz. All right, we'll move on to our next item. So the next agenda item is a discussion on the Entrado Viper 7 911 call taking platform and issues PSAPs are experiencing. Ms. Graver will give us a report on this. Liz?
Thank you, Chief Walker. So this is for information to the 911 oversight team. One of the 911 vendors we have for call taking equipment is Entrado, and their Viper 7 is their latest upgrade that came, that they released almost 2 years ago. And we've have 7 PSAPs that have been upgraded to this system. And we have found that the system has had quite a bit of flaws in it. We experienced many patches and upgrades and fixes that we've applied to it. It seems to affect the systems that are that have automatic call distribution, your larger agencies. And the vendor has worked with us to get it done, but to get these fixes, but it just has not tapped down all the call taking issues that they run into. It hasn't affected any the ability to answer 911, but there is enough issues, small issues, that it's problematic for the PSAPs. And so we are working with the vendor closely and to see what kind of relief they can give us. They have been able to solve a lot of the issues, but it has been a concern with the PSAPs that putting in Viper 7 going forward, and if it's going to stabilize or not. And granted, all the vendors we have different issues, just depending on but Viper 7 seemed to have more struggles than usual. And we just felt like that we wanted to make aware of it. I don't know if Michelle, and we also have Mike Folia on the line, and Karen Sutherland, who have attended the PSAP managers meeting, that can, if they want to add anything to the struggles that they're having, that the PSAPs with Viper 7 are having.
Thoughts, or Ms. Sutherland?
Chief Walker, I can say that we transitioned to Viper 7 in December of 2019. And I would say the upgrade was probably the most significant upgrade in my 25 years. So we probably had about 18 months that it was constant patches that we were putting onto the system. And I know MR911 was working direct with Entrado, and we were working on biweekly calls with Entrado as well. So it was definitely a lift. I think we're in a better place now. But I would say that Viper 7 has had a significant impact on the region. I think secondary impact is that there was so much attention on Viper 7 and getting it to a stable level that I think the secondary impact on the other sites in the region on standard maintenance and things like that is definitely a struggle just to keep afloat on the MR911 team. So Entrado has been responsive, but the product itself was definitely, I would say, subpar than what we're accustomed to with Entrado. So I know that people have been looking, my peers have been looking at other systems in response to what we've seen with Viper 7, but I think we're in a better place now. I think last I checked, we only had one ticket outstanding with Viper 7. So, but it took 18 months, which is definitely not the norm.
Thank you for that information. Ms. Sullivan, anything you'd like to add?
I can't really add as much insight as Michelle has because we haven't upgraded yet. I can say that we have decided to go with the Vesta program instead of Viper though, and that was certainly a part of that decision.
Thank you. Any questions from the membership? I've got a couple questions. Liz, are there other options out there, or do you have enough options to choose a different product? So you suddenly just mentioned one other product, or do you feel like you're going to be forced to use this product?
Thank you, Chief Walker. And this kind of bleeds into our next agenda item. The state RFP has put out a 911 call handling equipment RFP that includes several vendors. So we are looking at, of course, we have systems that are going to the Motorola Vesta solution. That's the one that we just cut over at Phoenix Fire and getting ready to cut over at Glendale PD in November. Tempe and Scottsdale, as Karen said, have selected the Vesta option. We are also looking at a product called Guardian. It's being sold to us by a company called Next Gen Communications. These are a company that one of the platforms that they sell and that we've been using is our selective router that we manage our 911 wireless call routing through. They offer a call handling solution as well. And AMR Rural Metro, who's one of our PSAPs, also has selected that one. So this gives us an option of 3. So that Viper 7 is not necessarily need to be selected unless the PSAP feels that it's stable enough that they want it in there. Then that is their decision, but we do have an option of 3 different vendors just to help make sure that we're not painted into a corner.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. Thank you. And we hate to have a single point of failure in anything we do, certainly. So any other questions from the group? All right, seeing none, this item is on the agenda for information discussion only, so we can move on. So our next item is an update on the state 911 call handling equipment and the statewide 911 network and their impact to the region. Ms. Graber, will you provide us with this update?
Thank you, Chief Walker. And this will just be a quick update. The state went through and did 2 different RFPs that deal with 911. One we just talked about on call handling equipment. These are statewide for all PSAPs to use. And the second one is for a next gen 911 EZNet platform. Remember through our discussions, EZNet is the 911 network that 911 calls right across on IP platform. Not only the voice of the caller, but data that comes with it. As we know in this time with technology, that there's a lot of data points that can come with 911 besides just the voice. And this allows the operator to receive rich information about a 911 call, more accurate wireless locations, appropriate routing, things that we struggle with now that should help clear that up. Eventually, it will get into sending pictures or videos as that matures, and as well as text messaging, which we already have, but that integrates it and gives us better location on those that are sending text. So it is a big leap for the state of Arizona. We're really happy about it. And the other decision the state made is to have 2 EZNet systems. Maricopa Region has our own EZNet that we've been managing since 2010. But with the vendor that they selected will also do the EZNet for everything outside of the Maricopa region. And then the idea is to have eventually the two EZNets connected so that if one EZNet failed, there would always be something else working. One of the struggles that the PSAPs outside of Maricopa region have had is when a system goes down, they all went down and for outages. And we felt like we needed to be able to balance that, to have an escape route for 911 calls so that they just don't go to nothing. And that's what the Southern Arizona mostly was dealing with, is when there was a problem with their 911 system, nobody got their calls, but the 911 calls went nowhere. And so we're hoping that this will relieve that as well. So that's a overview of the RFP that the state has done and awarded. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
Any questions for Ms. Graber on the membership? All right, seeing none, we will move on. Thank you, Liz. So the next agenda item is a briefing on a request from the governor's office on 911 data. This report will also be given by Liz Graber. Liz?
Thanks. The governor's office has shown interest in 911 statistics with the idea of perhaps bolstering monies. There are no specific monies set aside for this, but they wanted to know how the 911 systems were handling data, how they were answering calls, are they following the standards, and we're wanting data. One of the things that the state implemented as one of their roadmap items is a platform that allows all of the agencies to feed into a platform that the state bought on 911 data analysis, and they have this program that allows it to do that. So, and as part of that, they are able to run different performance statistics according to what the governor's office is wanting. And their hopes were to help benefit the PSAPs, to see if funding, if there were struggles, any way they could help, whether it's consulting services, whether or not training, whatever it was to help in the struggles with the PSAPs. So also as a part of that governor's report, what it brought to light is we needed to have a data sharing agreement between the Maricopa region and the state. The information that we're giving to them is raw 911 call data, including names and phone numbers of those that are calling for help. And those are traditionally redacted when those become public records. And so we need to get a data sharing agreement in place to make sure that the information is being shared appropriately and the information that they're gathering is in secure hands. And with that, I'll entertain questions from the group if you wish.
Any questions from the membership?
Chief Walker, I think I'm not completely clear what data is going at this point. So I think for us, the question is, who owns the data, whether it's resides as a agency specific data, or if it's the question, does the data reside with the box itself, or who purchased the box? I think maybe that's one of the questions that might be out there. And then I think also one of our concerns that's been discussed in our agency is being able to just delineate, the lanes and where it's going to go, just so we all know if there's an incident, who's going to release what information, so we can just be able to provide context within an incident. So if there's, an active shooter or something like that, we just want to be able to retain that information before it goes out. So I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but we just want to make sure that we can retain that data before it gets out and have some kind of control over it.
Thank you, Ms. Potts, for those comments. Yeah, I would share your same concerns, and certainly having Liz works here at the Phoenix Fire Department and work with me, is we are moving slowly on this to be sure we are clear, trying to delineate those lanes as well. So I think this is something everybody probably needs to be paying attention to on this one. So any other questions or comments? All right, well, this item was on the agenda for information discussion only, so if there are no other comments, we can move on. All right, do we have any requests for future agenda items from the membership? All right, seeing or hearing none. Are there any announcements from the membership that you would like to make? Seeing none and hearing none. So I believe this will adjourn our meeting. The next meeting of the MAG 911 Oversight Team will be on December 1st, 2021 at 10 a.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.